I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We'll have a roll call, please.
Mayor Hassler.
Here.
Alderwoman Cleghorn. Here. Alderwoman Johnson. Here. Alderman Donovan.
Here.
Alderman Jokers.
Here.
Alderman Eidman.
Here.
Alderman Rainey.
Here.
Alderman Prince. Alderwoman Armbruster. Here. Mayor, we have a quorum.
Very good. Move for approval of the agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Takes us down to our city administrator's report.
You've got a copy of it at your seat. Going over item number 5, we had the roof people come in, take a look at City Hall and the Welcome Center. So they did City Hall yesterday, so that part is completed. They'll get to the skylights. Now that the weather's turned again, we'll have to wait for that to occur, but at least we got them on the schedule. And we got a quote back from the electrician to get the lights done. We've got them on contract, so we should get that started here soon as well, once they get people available to do it. Stormwater study, you've been asking about that. We had thought we'd have it by middle of December. However, Cochrane is delayed on that, and we will have it for the February 23rd work session. So expect it at that point. They just had some delays and some issues internally that they just couldn't get it done. And I'm hoping to see a little bit more of how the rain reacts or water reacts, but we haven't had that much rain. But when they were looking at it, we didn't have that much rain at the time. So
I don't know if this is the time to talk about it, but we had some citizens here at our water plant. We had some debris. I saw some trees that needed to be taken out. Did we do anything with that, or?
we've already completed what was requested of us.
Okay, good, good.
And we still have a little bit more work, but the neighbors also had some work that they wanted to complete.
Oh, good, good.
Still working on that. Sales tax report came in yesterday. For the year, we were up overall about 5.6%. That's on our sales tax, and that was all the 3 sales taxes that we have. And then for the use tax, we were up about 25% for the year from 2021 to 2022. So that was some good numbers. Money or revenue that we'll probably end up using for some of these projects that we've had come before us that we haven't budgeted for this year, like the 911 system and for the extra road projects that we've talked about. So there's no worry about that money just sitting there. It's going to be used for something. Any questions about any other stuff I've got on there?
Very good.
Right.
Now we'll go down to our staff reports, and you're the interim tourism director right now.
Interim tourism, there you go.
You have a report for us, I see.
So you've had one in your packet. I've got a few things to cover. Next events are the King's Ball. That's coming up February 4th at the VFW Hall. Chocolate Walk is that afternoon. That's done by Downtown St. Gen. Chamber of Commerce Winter Music Series kicks off February 10th at the Oris Theater. So they've got requests out now for sponsorships on that. St. Genevieve Gravel Classic, we had scheduled it or thought it was scheduled for April 15th. We moved that with TrailNet because the idea now is set up the night before for people to sign up at the Taste of St. Genevieve. So that gives people a reason to come in the night before, stay overnight, do the Gravel Road Classic the next day. So that's why you'll see that it is scheduled on the 16th, working with TrailNet. It will be in a different location. I'll have some road closures for you coming up. We'll be contacting those groups where the gravel goes across to get their, get the okay, like levy commission, that kind of stuff. But that's on schedule. Things are looking good. Trying to get those vendors that want to get involved out there. We are helping sponsor this. So with that sponsor, we will sponsor local businesses, small businesses, to show up and set up a booth. So this year it will be set up at Audubon's instead of on Market Street. So we'll be utilizing a portion of Main Street. So that will be the change this year. And Google advertising over the last 30 days is back to normal. We had 3,120 impressions, 88 clicks. Click-through rate was just over 2%. The month before, we had a 10% click rate, and that was much better. Peak days have been the Sunday of the holiday festival and the weekend before Christmas. That's when people were checking us out. I find that interesting. Our business ads generated about 20% more calls, but everything else was down about 33%. Why we were getting more calls? I guess it was just, personal inquiries for stuff instead of looking it up. Facebook, we had 24 new likes. Our reach numbers overall were down. We didn't have any boosting going on, so that's one of the reasons the numbers were down. We had boosted a couple of things over Christmas and really got some good responses, like the Dorlu Santa we had out there. That had a ton of responses. We had a house as one of our front of Susie's house we had on our Facebook page. We put it up as just kind of, give it a seasonal look on the page, and we had, I think, 1,700 reactions to it, which is pretty high. It was kind of nice to see. That's what people are interested in. So we were, with no boosting, we were down about 25% from the previous period on people getting engaged. So we're kind of quiet for the next couple of months, and then we'll get back into it. Any questions?
Very good.
Sure.
I don't see Chief Steiger here tonight,
It's not here.
so we got his report. Is there any questions about that we need to talk about? With that, we'll go on to David. Community Development.
Good evening.
Good evening.
You've got my report there.
I'm going to cover a few additional things, though. Under historic preservation, you can see the planning and outreach grant that we've been working on with SHPO for a year. We're in the process of drafting an RFP for that here in the next couple months. The State Historic Preservation Office CLG coordinator and SHPO grant manager will be at our next Heritage Commission meeting. They come typically every few years, but the pandemic caused a few issues with that, so they'll be here. They'll go over a few things, and I'll go over our CLG status with them. One side note on CLG status, they haven't had any meetings for 3 years, but they did recognize St. Genevieve for, we have been a CLG for 30 years, so it's we're one of the oldest CLGs in the state, so that was nice recognition that they provided for us. And then I'll come back to this, but I want to talk a little bit about possibly applying for a Paul Brune Historic Revitalization Grant. You've got some additional information that I left at the table for you, but I'll come back to that. Under Building Department Code Enforcement, you see the numbers there. We do have finally some tiny home ordinance ready to adopt, but we want to, we'll talk it through first, so we'll probably have that in an upcoming work session, and then it'll have to go to P&Z. And then we have some stuff that'll come through P&Z in February, and then to you on home-based businesses and, of course, recreational marijuana being adopted into zoning. We dropped down under comprehensive plan. We do have the survey out there now. It was made available on the 27th of February. I put some numbers there, but I called the RPC about an hour ago. We were at 295 surveys. I have a goal of trying to reach 500. So we've shared that out to a lot of local employers, to local business organizations, schools. So it's out there. It's on our social media. If you all haven't taken it, here it is. You can have a copy and make sure you take it.
Survey closes when?
Survey closes January 30th. Yes. So, and for those who may not have social media or maybe watching the meeting, this is a survey to develop a new comprehensive plan for the city. Should be something that we can use for the next 15 to 20 years, making decisions on land use, community development, and so on. So please take it. It'd take, I've been told 5 to 10 minutes. I put 10 to 15. So it depends on how many comments you want to give. Once we get the results from that, we'll gather our steering committee back, go over that, the results with the steering committee and with staff here at City Hall, and we'll move on to the next stage. That's about all I have for my report. So if you'll pull up the memorandum, I put it at the table for you. I keep a pretty close eye on grants throughout the year, and there's not always tons from historic preservation that we qualify for. You usually have to be a certain size. This one we qualify for. It doesn't mean we can absolutely win it, but it feels right. So This is a grant that supports a sub-grant program. So the grants are anywhere from $200,000 to $750,000, fully funded, though we can, offer to pay 10% match or 20% match, but it's a 0% match required. And then we would take that money and we would have our own grant system that we would have people apply to us for. That's why there's a 3-year completion. It usually takes a year to kind of get through that sub-grant program. Previous grant winners have focused on facade improvements, rehabilitation of buildings within the historic district. You'd have to be a contributing structure within the historic district or a local landmark. Like I said, no federal match required. There's a clear connection there to a lot of our community goals. The webinar for this and the release date was December 15th, but it has a February 7th due date. So if it's something that the board seems interested in, what I'll probably do is bring a resolution back at the next meeting, start working on the application process, and move forward with it. I just wanted to gauge your interest. Lots of heads nodding, so I feel like we will move forward with that. Yes. Any questions for me?
I'm just curious what kind of vegetation you think is going on at this time of year.
A large tree at an intersection corner.
Oh, that is a big deal.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any committee reports? Okay, no committee reports. It takes us down to public comments. We have time for public comments.
I'm Bob Brownie, 498 Merchant Street. I'm here to expose what's been going on by Sue and Carl Kinski. It's all been documented. Our St. Genevieve Police Department is not involved with it. The Sheriff's Department is not involved with it. I didn't want no repercussions on them. There is an investigation going on by an outside agency. I am tired of being threatened, and all stems because I'm a Trump supporter and a Republican. Start out by Carl. He'll come by my house singing, Trump's like an opera singer. Trump's a traitor. Bob Brownie's a traitor. They're going to get executed. And he does this all the time, nonstop. He tried to run me off the road one time, followed me all the way to Farmington. This car was on my ass all the way down there. I kept trying to pull off the road, and the car would pull off. Almost to Farmington, and here we go. The window comes down. It's Kinski. F you, and he's doing this with his car. And this been going on and on and on. Call me a mega white racist. I ain't far from being a racist. Anybody that's been in my house sees what pictures are on my wall. I'm not a racist. There was a sign that was put in my yard, made out of a Trump sign. It says, I pump penis. It was put there on my birthday. Last year, I believe it was. Well, that was documented. Then a while back, this lady pulls up and says, you know, you're not a bad guy. She says, we got different political views. And she shows me a picture of Sue, and it looks like it's inside of the old, oh God, the building they turned into an art thing, the museum. She's standing over the sign. This, I pump penis. It was made out of a Trump sign. I'm here tonight. A lot of people feel the same way I'm feeling. She needs to resign herself from being an alderwoman. She's not fit to be at that table. She needs to remove herself from the mayor's race. She's not fit to be a mayor. She's a disgrace. You don't do that. You don't do it, and then Carl is nonstop. This has to stop, all because I'm a Trump supporter. Even after Carl did what he did to me years ago, and he stood right here in this room and apologized to me and said he was wrong for what he did. We'll let that go. They came in my yard. on the garden tours. I gave him plants and bulbs. And then, boom, as soon as all that Trump stuff happened, when I got my leg broke by James Irwig, he said he was an Antifa person, that's when he started in on me. He's relentless. And then she starts in on me. They see me, and I was on a walker. Oh, his leggy hurts. That's not good for a person of her stature. And Carl just won't stop. I mean, death threats, telling me I'm going to die, telling me when the New World Order takes over, they're taking my house over and killing my animals. He can threaten all he wants. You don't threaten my animals. No. And I'm tired of it. I was on my motorcycle not too very long ago. It was the last time I rode it. I decided I could no longer ride it with my leg. Her, Sue, Carl, and 2 other people was walking. It would have been in the sandbar area on Merchant Street. And I was coming this way on my motorcycle, and they were crossing the street, and they all had a styrofoam cup. He throws a drink at me. I went down the street and turned around, they were gone. I'm tired of it. I just want people to know what these 2 people are. And he's an officer of the court, and he does it. She's an alderwoman and wants to run for mayor and doing this. You're a disgrace. I'm telling you now, leave me alone, the both of you. One more time to me, one time too many. Don't come by my house and threaten me no more, Carl. I'm tired of it. I'm doing this publicly, so
Need
everybody
to address the
knows.
board, Bob. You're here to address the board.
No,
I'm just saying, you're here to address the board,
Okay,
not the
I
gallery.
want everybody to know what's going on.
Okay,
When I get death threats over and over and over, I want people to know.
okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Any other public comments? Well, here got Gina up here.
Hello. Gina Bennett, I live at 107 Bosler Drive, apartment 9. 4 points, just quick questions, and then I'll sit down. General occupancy requirements are, I just found out from Dave, they're listed on something up front. I haven't checked that, so thanks. Who enforces landlord violations? Are they fairly enforced? Meaning everybody who owns property, do they all follow the same set of rules? Because I live where I live, but I get complaints in the middle of the night at roads from people who don't like where they live, and they tell me all this stuff, and I'm like, I can't fix it. Go to your alderman, go to the police, go somewhere else. I just came for coffee or, lottery tickets. So that's something I wanted somebody to look into. Salary of tourism positions. I got questions on you're thinking of changing it to a part from home, and I don't see in the papers I got what the salaries are of all the different positions. So that is ambiguous. I'd kind of like to know what that is. The website of City Hall, who keeps that up? I don't know, but it's not update, and I don't know what your budget is for that. And notification of City Hall stuff is done how? As far as I know, it's only on Facebook. I have a lot of old family members and friends who don't like Facebook, won't get on Facebook, and they get pissed when I call and tell them, you got a boil order. And they're like, well, how'd you know? And I'm like, I read Facebook. So, think about that. We used to have Web Techcaster something where they'd send you a text, but I think that system got disbanded. So whatever, I don't understand money, I'm not good with it. So I'm asking, address that somehow and let people know what's going on. And FYI, on your report, if you're boosting your Facebook, it's a bad idea, because you boost once or twice and then you quit, they take all your information and put you in the toilet. Because I used to boost a few things for the farmers market, and after that my post went nowhere because they try to get me to boost the stuff, and I don't have the money, I'm just a volunteer. And the farmer's market doesn't have a budget to boost Facebook. If you give them a little bit of money, then they want it forever. So be careful with social media. You only get what you're willing to pay them for now. So I wouldn't recommend paying them for anything. Find a different way, get a web person and somebody savvy, which I'm only a little savvy, but I'm savvy enough to know they're screwing us over. They've screwed over the world, personally, I think. So anyway, that's all I got to say.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Gina. Carl?
First off, I believe in free speech.
Carl?
I'm sorry.
Carl, your name first.
First off, I believe in free speech, and I believe that Mr. Brownie has the right to put up any sign that he wants on his house. I believe also I have the right of free speech, and I disagree with most of the signs that Mr. Brownie has on his house. And I have told him that about 2 times. I've told him that by singing the stupid jingle that I prepared and singing it to him. And I'm sorry if it offended him, but frankly, his remarks, which were lies for most part, offended me greatly. And there is no surer way to offend a man than to attack his wife. And I would appreciate if he stopped doing that. I will not sing my jingle in front of Mr. Brownie's house ever again. There was no cuss in that jingle. Everything that I said in that jingle is something that I strongly believe and that I believe I have the right to say as an American. But I will not sing that. But I don't want Mr. Brownie to think that my stopping to sing it is because I'm afraid of him. It's not. It's because I don't want to hurt his feelings and because I've got a higher person to answer to, and that is Susie Johnson. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Are there any other public comments? With that, we'll move on to, at 6:22, we're going to open up the floor for a public hearing. Myself and the board will conduct a public hearing to consider a request for VIO Properties LLC for a special use permit to allow guest lodging at 320 Washington Street in an R2 General Residential District.
Yes, so VIO Properties applied for a special use permit for guest lodging at 320 Washington, 1221. Notice of meeting was mailed to the applicant, to adjoining property owners on 1222. The application was sent to PD and Fire on 1227, and application and results returned from PD and Fire on 1228. Meeting notice was sent to the media on the 22nd of December that there would be a planning and zoning meeting on January 5th, and of course tonight's public hearing on January 12th, published in the paper on December 28th. Planning and zoning held their meeting last week and approved this special use permit by a vote of 503. I received no questions or comments from any of the adjoining property owners. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. So at 6:24, we'll close the public hearing. That takes us to the consent agenda.
Move through.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Takes us to old business, which we have none, so we'll go on to new business. We need approval of a bid from Shallow Creek Kennels in the amount of $14,000 for a new police canine.
Paul, I had one question and stuff, and it was kind of in the consent agenda and stuff, but any idea what Mario will bring us?
Chief is coming up to answer that question.
After speaking with the local kennels and the one that we're purchasing the new dog from, pretty much nothing. They said that we have to take into consideration his age, And then the way the process would work, we would have to maintain and house the dog, continue with his training, and if they happened to find a department that met the criteria for Mario, then they would send him our way and we could negotiate a contract with them. But they said that the entire state is flooded with these dogs right now, so that's what you're up against.
Right. That was my concern as far as disposing of him now with everybody getting rid of them as they're.
Yes, as far as finding placement for him to do what he does now is probably very slim. That's why we took the route that we did.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Very good. So we approve of that bid?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good, thank you. Takes us to bill number 4525, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a proposal for professional services with Cochran Engineering for the St. Mary's Road Sidewalk Trail Improvement.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Takes us to bill number 4526, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a proposal for professional service with Cochran Engineering for water main improvements.
Motion to approve?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Motion for second reading?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Takes us to the second reading of bill number 4526, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a proposal for professional services with Cochran Engineering for water main improvements.
Motion to approve?
Second.
Have a roll call, please.
Alderwoman Clegg-Harn.
Yes.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Jokers.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
Alderwoman Armbruster.
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no's, 1 absent. Bill number 4526 now becomes ordinance 4447.
Thank you. Takes us to bill number 4527, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a revised Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission municipal agreement for public improvements along Route 32 and 61.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion for a second reading?
Second.
All in favor of that?
Aye.
Thank you. Takes us to second reading of bill number 4527, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a revised Missouri Highways and Transportation Commission municipal agreement for public improvements along Route 32 and 61.
Second?
Have a roll call, please.
Alderwoman Armbruster.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
Alderman Jokers.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Yes.
Alderwoman Clegg-Harn.
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no's, 1 absent. Bill number 4527 now becomes ordinance 4448.
Thank you. Takes us to bill number 4528, an ordinance imposing a sales tax at a rate of 3% on all tangible personal property retail sales of adult use marijuana sold within the city of St. Genevieve, Missouri, pursuant to Article 14, Section 2.65, parentheses 5 of the Missouri Constitution, subject to the approval by the voters of the city at the general municipal election to be held on April 4th, 2023, designating the form of a ballot and directing the city clerk to provide notice of said election.
I've got one question and stuff. I've heard that 3% number before. Is that a state mandated?
That was in the constitutional.
Oh, okay.
And the county can also pass a 3%?
Yes.
And that, so then if the sale took place in the city, it would be 6%.
6%.
Thank you.
Motion to approve?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye. Motion for a second reading.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks. Thank you. It's a bill, second reading of bill number 4528, an ordinance imposing a sales tax at the rate of 3% on all tangible personal property retail sales of adult use marijuana sold within the city of St. Genevieve, Missouri, pursuant to Article 14, Section 2.6, parentheses 5 of the Missouri Constitution, subject to the approval by the voters of the city at the general municipal election to be held on April 4th, 2023, designating the form of ballot and directing the city clerk to provide notice of said election.
Motion to approve?
Second.
A roll call, please.
Alderman Jokers.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Yes.
Alderwoman Clegg-Harn.
Yes.
Alderwoman Armbruster.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no's, 1 absent. Bill number 4528 now becomes ordinance 4449.
Thank you. Takes us to first reading of bill number 4529, an ordinance repealing section 135.175 point.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Takes us to the first reading of bill number 4530, an ordinance adopting section 700.010, disclosure of utility billing records.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Takes us to bill number 4531, an ordinance approving a special use permit for VIO Properties LLC that will allow guest lodging at 320 Washington Street.
Motion to approve. Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Motion for second reading.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Second reading of bill number 4531, an ordinance approving a special use permit for VIO Properties LLC that will allow guest lodging at 320 Washington Street.
Motion. Second.
Have a roll call, please.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Yes.
Alderwoman Clegg-Harn.
Yes.
Alderwoman Armbruster.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
Alderman Jokers.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no, 0 no's, 1 absent. Bill number 4531 now becomes ordinance 4450.
Thank you. This is the reading of bill number 4532, an ordinance accepting and approving the levy education and recreation subdivision that divides a section of North St. Genevieve Joint Levy Commission property.
Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion for second reading.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Takes us to the second reading of bill number 4532, an ordinance accepting and approving the levy education and recreation subdivision that divides a section of the North St. Genevieve Joint Levy Commission property.
Second.
Have a roll call, please.
Alderwoman Armbruster.
Yes.
Alderwoman Clegg-Harn.
Yes.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Jokers.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no's, 1 absent. Bill number 4532 now becomes ordinance 4451.
Thank you. Takes us to the first reading of bill number 4533, an ordinance of the City of St. Genevieve, Missouri, amending the personnel manual as set forth below.
I'll make a motion to approve.
All in favor?
Aye. Motion for second reading.
Do I have a second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Second reading of bill number 4533, an ordinance of the City of St. Genevieve, Missouri, amending the personnel manual as set forth below.
Second.
A roll call, please.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
Alderwoman Armbruster.
Yes.
Alderwoman Clegg-Harn.
Yes.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Jokers.
Yes.
7 yes, 0 no's, 1 absent. Bill number 4533 now becomes ordinance 4452.
Thank you. Is there any other business? If there's no other business, I'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you. And like to have an approval of the agenda.
Motion to approve?
All in favor? Very good. Happy it's your meeting.
All right, so first up on the agenda is the American Legion has a request to put out a monument in front of their building, and we will give the floor to them to explain.
How you doing? Warren Jokers, Vice Commander, American Legion Post 150. Virgil Boyer's here, he's Commander of Post 150. I recently submitted a letter of a request to look at the possibilities of having a static display put up in front of the American Legion Post. I went up, there's several steps we've got to do to get this, we just can't go out and get a helicopter, for instance, and I put helicopter down to Huey. Most of the Vietnam veterans, Huey, but we're going to have to bring it up in front of our membership to vote on what we want. I don't want Virgil to say we're going to get a Huey and that's it. It's going to be to the membership. The Huey isn't always possible. They're not going to decommission one so we can have it. So there's going to be a list and a waiting list. We'll submit the paperwork. And if the membership wants that, that's what we would like to ask to go forward with. If the membership wants a cannon, something similar like the VFW has, maybe something a little bit more modern, we would go with that. Or a track vehicle. VFW out of Farmington has a tank. So that's kind of what we got in mind. It all boils down to the availability of the Army equipment that we can use for a static display. And I'm just reading off this paper here. It says, in the event that the offer for combat equipment is not made within 3 years, period, we would have to resubmit it, the request. So what we've done so far, the Department of the Army said that we have to have a request and have, I think it's paragraph 2, we have to have a written, excuse me, got a dry mouth. We have a written request with the mayor, county commissioners, and any appropriate government offices to get the permission to have the display put up. And then it goes on down saying what we have to do to fulfill the contract with them. And it all hinges on you guys right now as far as approval. And I'm sure you want to know if we're going to get a helicopter or not. And like I said, we have to submit the paperwork and see what we're able to get. You know, like I said, it could be several different items. But as far as I know right now, this is the first step, and it could take 2 to 3 years. And hopefully we've got a congressman that'll also help us as well. That's where I went and got all the paperwork to get this started. So, and we will incur all expenses. We won't be asking the city for any money, and it will be presented with a lot of pride. And I think I don't know if it's going to bring in any tourists or anything, but I think it'll look kind of neat for the city to have something like that sitting there. So I guess basically what it hinges on with you guys first is the approval, and just a reply back from you guys with a letterhead saying that it's okay and that we can proceed and go forward. If not, we'll just drop it. And if at any time we've decided that we can't afford to do it, we'll let you guys know that we dropped the project, and we'll just go on from there. I think that's...
You're going to need quite a bit of money, you think, Warren?
Well, it's free.
Oh, I see.
We're going to hopefully get some donation, not donation, but volunteers that's got tractor trailer, hopefully to haul it.
Right.
You can haul on a gooseneck trailer. They're not that heavy.
Mm-hmm.
And they're stripped, so like the engine and all the heavy stuff's gone, just a shell. And we don't know where we would get it. It could be Fort Riley, Kansas. It could be Fort Leonard Wood. We don't know. So, like I said, it all boils down to our cost, whether we can do it or not, and waiting on approval from you guys.
One, Warren, I think it's an absolute great idea because nobody has one around. I mean, I've seen all the ones you've talked about. I guess the only question would be for Dave is, you know, what are we gonna require as far as permits and plans, or?
There's an exemption for this type of I would call it a monument, or maybe even a piece of artwork. So there's no like sign permit or anything. We would just want to make sure it stays out of the sight triangle from turning off of Rozier onto Center Drive. But the spot that they relayed to us looks like it would fit perfectly.
So we don't require anything structural of the base or anything to do that?
I mean, there would not be a permit. They would still need to follow codes, but I assume this type of structure could sit pretty much on the ground.
Right, it's gonna be off the ground. I'd say at least 10 to 12 feet. Gotta keep the little guys that's curious, try to keep from getting up into it.
But you'll have some, you securing it to the ground though, you'll have an expense in concrete base and
Oh,
stuff like
yes,
that.
yes,
So,
definitely.
okay.
Yeah.
Is that something that the Army assists you with?
No, the Army's not gonna assist us.
I mean, or tell you how to do it or anything?
No, as far as I can't say yes, can't say no, but as far as I know right now, no.
I think it's great.
I think it's board approved.
Yeah.
So we'll get a letter, you get the approval letter and I'll sign it.
All right, you can address that letter to either Virgil or myself at the Legion.
Okay. Get
And,
that? Okay.
Fantastic, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Looking
all.
forward to it.
Thank you, Virgil.
Thank you very much.
We hope it goes through. We don't know if it will or not, but we're hoping that it goes through. It's just a good display to put on in town.
Yeah,
For the veterans in town.
absolutely. Sounds good.
Whatever we can do to get it, we're gonna try to do it. May take a while.
It's all right. See you. Thank you. Item number 2, Happy.
Okay, next up, the board wanted to get a better understanding of financing that's available, and how that works. So there was a little bit of clarification as to what would be available for the street project if we decided to move on with that. That was one of the concerns, was the cost that came back for the street preventive maintenance program. So I invited Eddie McGliney with McGliney & Associates to kind of run down and give you some ideas and be open for questions that you would have about financing, how to pay it back, and that, how they've worked with other municipalities, school systems, others to go out and get these funds, what's available, what's allowable, and I'll let him tell you the rest of it.
Good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Eddie McGliney with McGliney & Company out of Kansas City, Missouri. I've been traveling, coming to St. Genevieve for both work and pleasure for now 38 years. I've been doing this municipal bond type of business for that long. McGliney & Company was started by my father in '66. My grandfather started in this business in 1929, so we've been doing municipal work in Missouri for a very, very long time. For streets, you really have two options to get it to finance. One is the tried and true that's been around for the longest amount of time, and that is a general obligation bond. It needs to go to your voters. It is secured by ad valorem taxes, your ability to raise taxes on all property within the city limits to retire the indebtedness. Your city has no general obligation bond indebtedness, so you could issue up to 20% of your assessed valuation on that. That would give you, again, from Mr. Welch, you've been looking at $10 million to $12 million. 20% would be about 13.8. So you have enough assessed valuation to do that if you so choose. That is the cheapest way. A full faith and credit general obligation bond is considered the most secure type of debt in Missouri. The more secure it's considered, the lower the interest rate. So that is number one. Your other option, which is really kind of a newer option, and it is becoming more and more accepted, and that is a lease purchase. Now, really a lease purchase in most instances is you are financing some piece of equipment or building or land. Asphalt isn't the greatest collateral by any means. really what it becomes, if you proceed as a lease purchase, it really becomes a moral obligation of the city. You're not going to walk away from it. People know you're not going to walk away from it, because there's one, it would of course ruin your credit, although it is a lease or a certificate of participation is a series of annual appropriations, meaning it's not considered debt. We consider it debt, the market considers it debt, but in your audit it would be looked at, it is not considered debt as a revenue bond is or a general obligation bond, because it's not voted. And again, the city has to enter into an annual appropriation to authorize the payment of the debt each and every year. Again, because the collateral is so weak, no real asset, that moral obligation would have a higher interest rate. Because there has not been problems in Missouri with lease purchases, years ago the spread was a lot, 0.5% or more. That has gotten narrower and narrower and narrower because there has not been that concern. The concern that you do want to, on a general obligation bond, there is no collateral, no one cares, you can go out 20 years. On a certificate of participation / lease, you might be more concerned about the useful life of the roads. That may be your concern on the GO bonds as well, but the market doesn't care. You do. So that you want to keep that in mind no matter which way you go, is the useful life. You're going to get 20 years out of it, or you're going to get 10. One item that you can apply towards either the lease or the general obligation bond is you can use money from your general fund to pay all or part of the debt service. You have a 1% general. You could go back to your voters and ask for another 1% and use the cash flow from that 1% to offset either the ad valorem tax increase necessary for the general obligation bonds, or use it as a cash flow for the lease purchase. It would take a vote of the citizens, and it takes a simple majority to do that. I would not recommend you earmarking that 1% for roads only in your question. I would recommend you that you leave it as general as possible, because as the sales tax increases, as your sales tax has been increasing, it would allow you to apply it towards any approved project within the city. But it is a way right now to get you to vote a GO bond or move forward with a lease. Again, I say a lease, I'm using a lease and a COP interchangeably because the security is the same. Your 1% looks like it would be bringing in about $725,000. A 20-year general obligation bond, actually a 10 million 20-year GO bond at about 4%, which is about where it would be running today, runs about the same amount, about $725,000. So those are really your two options on moving forward if you're wanting to do everything at once up front, or a substantial part of it. The drawback about doing a general obligation bond of that size is that it will use up virtually all of your general obligation bond capacity. I don't know if you have another project down the road 2 or 3 years, but you'd have to have your assessed valuation would have to grow in order to be able to vote, because again, you're only allowed 20% of your assessed valuation total. So so those are just considerations that you need to keep in mind as you move it forward. You sure have the ability to do a combination of GO bond, COP, sales tax, but that's where your municipal advisor, us, would work with Happy and your board, your selection, on coming up with a plan that works for you going into it, because you're going to have to convince your voters, if you go geo or sales tax and/or sales tax, the value of it. And of course, to have all of the board's support as well. So it takes some effort to get that done. But that's the way we would work with either the full board or a committee, and happy to come up with a plan.
One question back here, general obligation bond and stuff, this 20% valuation, what are you valuing, just the city's assets?
Yes, you have and it comes from your county clerk, a state assessed valuation, state assessed, and it's in your audit, and so I just took the number from that. Now that is based on actual value of the property as a percentage based on if it's personal property, real estate, if it is business, if it's homeowners. I mean, it's all set up by the county, and it is something that you're sent each and every year, and that's what taxes are based on.
Okay, but we're still not talking about just city assets. We're talking about everybody's.
We're talking about
County,
the
citywide.
assessed valuation of the city, of the property within the city.
So for a financial institution to do that, I mean, where's the security of, we're pledging everybody's assets, but we're only doing 20% of them.
You're only allowed by law
To do
to go
20%.
to, that's how much you're allowed to go on this, on your size.
Right.
You're not allowed, the Missouri Constitution says you can issue up to 20% of your assessed valuation for projects. It's just something that they, at one time it was 10, they increased it to 20 years ago. And it's arbitrary to me. I think it's one of those things, you have to vote it. I think it should be whatever you could get past your voters, because your voters have to approve it. Why is Jeff City telling you this is your maximum that you can do if your voters are willing to pay the debt service necessary to retire that? But that's my opinion. It may not go over in Jeff City.
So how are those bonds disposed of then? Or, I mean, they're sold just like normal municipal bonds?
Exactly. The general obligation bonds are normal municipal bonds. The COP would be sold just like it. What I would envision, because of what a fine credit you are, the first thing we would do is once we get the issue passed, it would go to some of the insurance agencies. I believe this should be insured. You're good in your strong credit, a full faith in credit, GO, and that by getting insurance would make it an automatic AA credit. Then you'd work with the bond attorney to come up with the necessary documents to put it out to bid. We put it out on a website that will have views from literally from New York to Hawaii. People in institutions all over the country can view it. Now, the most of the interest will come from firms that are located in Missouri. Also, Minnesota they have a lot of interest there that will buy it. They would see it. They have an exact terms, exact maturity schedule that they would bid on. They would have a date that they are to set their terms to us on that electric, on the internet, and we know at an exact moment what the interest rate is, the lowest interest rate for the city.
So these being municipal bonds would still be tax-free to the investor,
They're both federally and state of Missouri if you're a local resident, yes.
which makes them
Very attractive.
right.
And that's why you, again, with your credit, as strong as your credit is, you'd be in huge demand. And so that's why you'd want to get this out. And years ago, smaller communities, I'd say there are certain industry or certain companies like McLean & Company that really do just an incredible job in marketing smaller, non-rated issues under $1 million. You can't get a St. Louis firm or bigger Kansas City firm or somebody from from Minneapolis, St. Paul, to bid on a small town like that. It takes somebody like us with expertise who would buy it ourselves and then sell it in $5,000 denominations. Your credit is too good. You don't want to deal with one underwriter to buy it. You want the best terms available, and the best terms available now is to run a public sale, so you get it out to as many eyeballs as possible to see it and bid on it.
Well, how rare would that be, municipal bonds for paving projects? I mean, the ones I've seen in the past are usually for more tangible assets, I guess.
I have seen everything. I've done leases for asphalt. I've done general obligation bonds as well. It's very common because people need streets. And it is, if you don't have it in your budget each and every year, you don't have another option. Or in certain instances, if a town has not kept up with the roads for years and years, you really have no other option. You can't do a revenue bond. You can't collect, you can't put a toll at the end of every street to get you to collect revenue. So it is a very common type of financing. But it's not something, general obligation bond for schools is an everyday thing. This isn't an everyday, but it is very, very common. It is kind of one of the first deals I ever remember doing 38 years ago was for Reed, I believe it was Reed Springs, Missouri, down there at Table Rock Lake, was for streets. And I think Potosi, Deloge, I think the first deal I did, it was for $30,000 for streets. Yeah. Yeah.
With just not having a surplus budget, the only way to do these things is increasing something somewhere.
Yes.
You just think of securing things, something a little more tangible, like banks do with vehicles.
Well, to the general market, there's nothing more secure than an ad valorem, the ability for you as a council to raise the levy to whatever is necessary to retire that debt. We go in and based on your assessed valuation for a $10 million issue, it looks like you would need, if you use no sales tax, it looks like you would need about a $1.06 debt service levy. Well, if your assessed valuation dropped in half, you'd be required by law to double that levy. Now, it's not going to drop in half, but that is considered, you have the ability to raise that revenue by increasing the levy to whatever's necessary to pay it. It's considered very, very secure. That's why a GO bond has no collateral behind it other than the full faith and credit of the taxpayers of St. Genevieve.
So that's something our city administrator could put down in layman's terms for the average taxpayer, what that's going to relate to.
Yeah, we would work with them and come up with, here's the average home value is worth X. We could give an assessed valuation of Y, which could be an annual, or we break it down monthly, however you want, tax increase. Yes, we would work with them on helping getting that information out.
Well, let's take into consideration current economic conditions. This is not normal, what we're seeing right now. I mean, this surely can't be a prime time to do this, or?
Everything we ran in November passed. So I don't know. I mean, I would have thought going into November, everyone would be in a mood to say no on any type of tax increase, rate increases, and everything passed. Throughout the state, things that I didn't run and others, we get a list after the election of what passed. Virtually everything passed. Every place we're doing business.
So in a town of 5,000, I mean, is 10 to 12 million?
It's a lot of money. There is no doubt about it. But again, based on your assessed valuation, I see a lot of, for your town to have assessed valuation of the amount you have and have zero debt is what's rare, based on the assessed valuation.
You don't have zero debt.
On GO bonds.
Oh, okay.
So that's what's rare, zero on GO bonds.
We have other debt.
You have other, and you have COPs, and you have that, but for GO debt, to be rare to be zero is, as I said, is the rare. Being maxed out at 20, that would be rare as well. Going out for the full 20%. So you go from one extreme to another. But you don't have to use that entire
But
amount.
that's still misleading, not, just because we don't have any GO bonds and stuff like that, we have other debt and stuff, and, those all comes out of the same account to pay for them.
Well, that's why GO bonds, it isn't coming from the same account, other than you want to say your taxpayers, then yes.
Right.
But it is coming from taxes, an increase in ad valorem taxes instead of user rates.
Right. Appreciate it. All that information.
Any other questions? Lot to think about?
No, I'm
Are there any standard, terms that you're seeing with the lease to purchase options that have been out there? Like, how many years some of the cities are going out, or?
Yes, again, your credit, this would be a moral obligation. I would see no problem going out 20 years if you want it. What I do, especially on smaller towns that aren't quite as strong as yours, I talk to the engineer. What is the useful life? If he's, we're not going to have to patch anything or do anything once we lay this down for 12 years. Say, okay, let's limit this to a 12-year issue. 15 is probably what I see more than anything else is 15 years. But I want them to tell me, especially on these smaller towns that don't have the pockets and the wherewithal that you have, I want them to say, we're going to have to start patching this in 10 years, then let's leave it at 10.
And as far as the interest rates, with what?
Right now, if I'm non-rated, I think you'd be rated as a GO, but non-rated, I looked at it, 1 to 20 years. I came out, before I left, it was 4.11724. I think and I was on the high side. I think you'd be in, if we went non-rated, again, if we go rated, it changes everything. Under 4. But you get rated and get a AA rated with insurance, which of course it costs money to get the insurance, but it more than compensates to all of a sudden drop it down to the mid-3s.
I guess that interest rate is a fixed rate.
It would be fixed for the life of the issue, yes. And then one of the things that you talk about today's market being unique, I'd want to put in where usually people wanted a 10-year call or half the life to be able to, for the city to be able to call the bonds in early. I think right now I'd want to be pushing a 5-year call. If interest rates drop, you want to be able to get out of that and refinance it. You want to get as early call as we can.
Of course, paying it back would be one annual payment.
Usually the norm is semi-annual interest and annual principal payments. That's pretty much the accepted norm of tax-exempt bonds.
A lot of money.
Probably need to have a work session to go over the, actual pavement plan and what we're looking at with the years there and take a good look at it as a group too.
Right.
And how it's going to affect, homeowners with a $200,000 valued property or... Now, did you say that is personal property and real
Yes.
estate?
Yes. It's your total assessed valuation.
Right.
Yeah, the GO has to go for a vote. So, it's a taxpayer-supported increase. So, yeah, you're educating as to what it's being used for and why you're asking for it. Yeah.
My experience in bond issues, whether it's a revenue bond or general obligation bond, it really does not matter the size of the bond issue that's being on the ballot. It is what is it going to cost me? If they think $1 is reasonable for the improvements they're going to get, it will pass. If they think a penny is unreasonable, it won't pass.
But it's their decision.
It is their decision.
So you let them, you know.
But my point is that it's not to scare you off on putting a larger bond issue on, just because the number is large. It's what is it going to cost me, and it's in my pockets, it's really how people tend to vote on that. And getting it and educating them is key, because if they're not educated, they're going to vote no.
Right.
Okay, this was what you wanted to find out about these. Eddie, thank you very, very much.
Thank you much, man. Thank you very much.
Happy to come back, as you know, I absolutely love your town. Be happy to come back on a work session, get this, and help you through this process.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your
Eddie.
time.
Okay. Hey, Happy, you got bullet point number 3.
Bullet point number 3 is talking about Progress Parkway property. This is a closed session of the group. It's an optional closed session. You know, you would have to vote, need a motion to close part of this meeting pursuant to section 610-021, RSMR 2, real estate.
I make a motion that we go into closed session.
Second.
Discuss real estate.
Have a roll call?
Alderwoman Clegg-Harn.
Yes.
Alderwoman Johnson.
Yes.
Alderman Donovan.
Yes.
Alderman Jokers.
Yes.
Alderman Eidman.
Yes.
Alderman Rainey.
Yes.
Alderwoman Armbruster.
Yes.
Motion carries at 7:07.
Is there any more business, Happy, in your work
I
session?
do not have anything.
Well, you could close it out if you'd like.
This meeting is adjourned.
Oh.
Yeah. Nope.